Oh, just let me
That clock keeps ticking like a metronome, and my thoughts keep telling me to get me home, but my balls keep telling me to let me just let me
As you may or may not know, this watch, the Didun Design Royal Oak, was a very popular piece on my channel. But I recently parted with it, and thought to make a series around the watches I sold and why. To any of you who own this model, or its Audemars Piguet counterpart, I thought I could discuss some points about it with you that you may or may not agree with. In this series, I'll talk through the positives and the negatives of the watch, and why I ultimately decided to part with it. So the first positive point. This watch has impeccable build quality. I've said this countless times in practically every video I've ever done with the watch. You will not find a more accurate homage to the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. Even to this day, I do not own a watch that rivals it in build quality. The finishing is second to none. The brushing and polishing is perfect, down to the direction of the brushing grain. The steel is a hard 316L stainless steel. It is not an alloy blended with softer metals. And because of that, the watch can hide scratches and blemishes very well on its surface. The second positive. The watch was extremely comfortable on the wrist, and that all had to do with the bracelet and clasp. The combination of these two elements made the watch phenomenal. I would say that they are the best thought out clasps in the watch industry today. The double deployant that sits comfortably in the center of the wrist with zero presence makes the watch feel very secure against the skin. The bracelet, with its many separate links, conform to the wrist with the security of a Rolex Oyster bracelet and the comfort of a Jubilee. The twin triggers are discreet and stay out of the way until required. There is just such an assurance when putting the watch on and taking it off. The third positive, the legibility of the dial. The blend of the simple stick hands and stick markers with a date window at the 3 o'clock position makes the watch highly legible. I never struggled with telling the time when looking at the watch, especially because the black dial accentuated the markers. And the loom was very strong and lasted throughout the night, making the watch an excellent night clock on the desk. The fourth positive, the aesthetic. This is up to personal opinion, but I enjoy the aesthetic of the watch. A hard, industrial designed piece that looks like it fell through a time warp from the 70s into the present day. Though it might feel a little less timeless than the Nautilus, the design was the archetype for it. It looks rugged, it looks mean, it looks like it knows the business. It is unique. And I think its aesthetic is what makes the watch so profound in any collection. On to the negatives. I found the watch's weight to be an issue when wearing it on a daily basis. It was by far the heaviest watch I owned, and that is by no means a bad thing. For a daily wearer, I found the watch tiresome at times. Maybe a way to counteract that would be to put it on a leather strap, but that takes away from the watch's core design philosophy. So my choice was to either lighten the watch by affecting its aesthetic, or grit my teeth and learn to enjoy the weight. The second point leads on to the watch's fitment, and how the 41mm case conformed to my wrist. I'm fortunate to have a wide, flat wrist bone that allowed the watch to sit comfortably, but there were times when I felt the watch could have improved if its overall size was smaller. As I've said before, you have to add 2mm to any Audemars Piguet watch when looking at its size. And I honestly wouldn't recommend this particular watch to anyone with wrists smaller than 6.5 inches, purely because it can be cumbersome. The third point. I became bored with the watch and its aesthetic. Another major opinion, but at the time, the simple dial and the date function with no other features made the watch boring to me. It could also have been because of the black dial. Simply put, I own too many watches with black dials, and the color bored me. If I was to buy the watch again, I would choose a blue dial or a white dial, simply to add more diversity to the piece and its overall appearance. But that is the trait of a well-designed watch. You can become bored of them for one reason or another. And the fourth negative, the watch's movement, for me at least, was unreliable. I enjoy automatic watches for many reasons, and one of the main reasons is to watch that second hand running around the dial. It adds a level of complexity to the watch that makes it all the more visually interesting. But this movement, which was not regulated, could run fast or slow depending on its use and its inactivity. The power reserve worked well, but the rotor would sometimes have a mind of its own and sped up the time to a point where it may have been gaining a minute every day. Though I love wearing watches for their aesthetics, I expect the watch to tell good time, not great time, like within the parameters of +2 or -2 seconds a day, but good time enough so that I know the exact minute of the day. If a watch cannot do that, I cannot enjoy it. And I think that was what put the nail in the coffin for me. The watch ended up in its box and was worn maybe 3 times in a month. So what now? Why am I making this video? After the recent purchase of the Parnas Panda Daytona, I have fallen in love with the watch's aesthetic. Not only does it have a mecha quartz movement that is accurate within +10, -10 seconds a year, but the white and black dial configuration appeals to me greatly. And truth be told, I miss owning a Didun Design watch simply because they are beautiful, and the Royal Oak aesthetic is so attractive that I need another one. So let's just say that another watch will be coming in to replace it. And let's just say that I think it remedies most of the things that I disliked about the previous model.